By the end of tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Alright guys, and welcome back to the final installment of this Just One Day series. Today I am doing Just One Night, and yes, I'm aware this is not the Just One Night book. This is actually all three books together, but I'm not cool enough to know how all of you people get it to show up on your iPads. Maybe you're using Kindle, whereas I use iBooks, but I have a really hard time getting the cover to show up for any length of time. The actual Just One Night is probably this much of the book, which is probably the reason I was able to squeeze it in, because if you have kept up with this month, I was really ambitious. I did the entire Lunar Chronicles series, although I did cut Heartless and Gilded, but because they're not actually part of Lunar Chronicles, I've forgiven myself. And then I changed which book I was going to do for Valentine's Day, and when I put the choice to you guys, you said do Just One Day, which naturally meant I'd have to do Just One Year and Just One Night, especially because it's not actually falling on Valentine's Day. So by doing a little bit more, it means that I could get a little closer to actual Valentine's Day. That's how it is. And I know I'm in the same outfit as yesterday, and that's because yesterday is actually today for me, and I'm just considering it a win that I had enough foresight to say I should probably do something a little bit more romantic for Valentine's Day this year, even though we all know my feelings about ushy-gushy stuff. But there we go. And I love this dress, and these earrings are really fantastic. They're really cool. They're arrows, and this one points down and then this one points up. They are great little finds. Just One Night, if you're unfamiliar with the series, first, go watch the videos. Second, go read the books. Third, I'll give you a brief overview of what they're about. And it's about a girl named Allison and this guy named Willem who meet by happenstance. They spend the day in Paris, and then Willem disappears. And Allison is like, what happened to you? And she's essentially devastated because he doesn't even know her real name. He calls her Lulu. And so her book, which is Just One Day, is spent with her being catalyzed by this meeting. And through it, she realizes that she has no idea who she really is and what she wants from life. And as she figures that out, she also pursues locating him again. And then his book, it's not necessarily catalyzed by their meeting in the same way, but it does set him on a new path. And so her book is about that one day and how that affected the rest of her year. His book is about that year in general, and then how a year can also feel like a day. So it's kind of, the idea is flip-flopped. I don't really feel like explaining it because it's a bit too abstract for me to just go for it, but read the books. She explains it much better than I do. But both books end with Allison showing up on his doorstep, and then we're done. Just One Night is basically giving us what we want, because while I am okay with the open-endedness of what could be happening with them, I'm sure a lot of readers are or were not, which is why Forman wrote this like 70-page pamphlet. I say pamphlet because with the Lunar Chronicles, she had Fairest kind of tacked on to the series, and it's truly a novella. And then I was dreading kind of doing this series because I didn't want to have to try to get another novella in. But 70 pages is not a novella. 70 pages essentially is an informational pamphlet about the one day that they then have again. And it's a completely different style than Just One Day and Just One Year, both in structure and narration. And so it's interesting. It's not bad, and I actually kind of like it. It's a bit chaotic, and because of the chaos, it's fun. Brief overview, or maybe not so brief because this is gonna be like a 10-minute review, which if you want something short, this is the one for you. Allison has shown up on Willem's doorstep, and he's pretty shocked. He's like, even though he'd been looking for her, he didn't expect that. They spend a little bit of time catching up, but they both are aware that they have other places to be. Allison is supposed to be going to Croatia because at the end of her book, she had been under the assumption that he was in a relationship with another girl. So she was like, okay, well, I found him. He's obviously happy with someone else. Now I'm just going to live the rest of my life. And by that, I'm going to go to Croatia before I have to go back home. Willem is starring in As You Like It. He is the understudy and the lead role. The lead actor had gotten hurt, so Willem was filling in, which is how Allison saw him in the production the night before. However, his director was not happy with the way that he performed Orlando because she had come to him and said, first, they find out that the guy is hurt. And so they run through it with Willem and everybody's blown away. And then they do it again and the director comes to him and says, don't do it that way. It's not your Orlando, it's his Orlando, so you need to do it his way. And this sort of freaks Willem out, but then he talks to a friend who's like, don't listen to her, that's terrible advice. And so even though the director is mad at him, he's going to get one more chance. I don't understand why, because you're given the impression that like they could just not do the performance at all. I like the explanation that she now has to, when her lead actor comes back, has to have him live up to what Willem did, and this guy just can't do it. So I like that idea, that Willem did it so well and so uniquely that she knows she's in the hole. So that's why she wanted him to do it the way the other guy was going to do it, which is with more machismo than vulnerability. So he's like, he knows he has to get back to the theater, to the amphitheater, in order to practice and then put on this second showing. They spent a little bit of time and then he's like, I really gotta go. And they're both nervous about him leaving because they're both sort of traumatized because the last time they separated, they lost each other for a year. But this time is very different because Willem is no longer an itinerant. He, even though it's temporary, he has a place to stay, and so he hands her the key and he's like, stay. So he does what he does. He comes back and he finds her hanging out with his BFF and he's like, oh, this is so right. And then they all get themselves together and all his friends and family and all those fun people come to watch and they go and have dinner and everybody's like, because it's her friends as well as his friends, like the people that she met in her quest as well as all the people who were in his life trying to help him out. They're all given their little parts of the story and how it all adds up to get where they need to be. And finally, Willem reveals that he's going to be moving to America because one of his friends owns a production company or of sorts. That's a very general term for it, and she has invited him to apprentice with them. And so he then looks at Allison and he's like, I don't know how she's taking this. She's crying. She has this look on her face. I thought I had things figured out, but maybe she doesn't like this plan. And it turns out she's fine with it, but the friends are like, just go. You need to go home. You need to talk it out. And they essentially make out the whole time that they're getting home, which I think is really funny because if you know anything about Amsterdam, it is the land of bikes. So they're riding a bike tandem, and every time they would stop, she would get off the bike and they'd make out, or, while he's pedaling, she'd lift his shirt and lick him. And because of the narrative style, because it's the Just One Day, Just One Year, our first person present. Just One Night is omniscient. And so not only do we get insights into literally every character's head, we also kind of get an overview of the narrator knowing how everybody's feeling. So even if we're in Allison's head, we get the little parentheses saying, but Willem likes it. So it's kind of strange, but it's amusing for me. They finally get to his place and get to do their consummation stuff. And yeah, they have some more discussions and they're like, we don't really know how this is going to work out, but it's going to work out, and the book ends. I will say that I found a typo in my ebook, and it's funny though, or ironic, because before I could even read the book, it wanted me to update it, and it still had a typo. I don't remember I had a typo before. Probably not, because I didn't mark it. But so anyways, I came back to this copy to see if it was the same in both copies, and it's not. So this is nothing against Gayle Forman. This is about whoever put her ebook together, or whoever's in charge of that. And I don't really know how it all works, but my assumption is they get the document and it's uploaded to the electronic form, and you know, things are formatted and blah 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 blah. But whoever's in charge of her ebook definitely made that mistake. I don't even know. But I thought it was funny, and it proved to me that, you know what? You guys need me. I had a lot of opinions, and I'm really good at spotting errors. So yes, I'm right here. Give me a call. I need a job. There we go. I recommend Just One Night, especially if you're one of those readers who was like, I want more. I don't like the fact that the curtain closed when she was on his doorstep. I want to know what happened. I want to know if he rejected her or whatever. Like, I want to know. Yeah, the narrative style is incredibly different. As I said, it's really chaotic, because you'll get a paragraph from Willem, and then you'll get a paragraph from Allison, and then you'll get a paragraph from Brocha, and then you'll get a paragraph from Hank, you'll get a paragraph from Kate, and it bounces. And then even within that, as I said, you get very omniscient narration, in which you get the parentheses of, you know, this is what Allison is doing, but this is what Willem is feeling about it. Or, so, a little voice in Allison's gut, it's her kishkas, only she doesn't know that word yet, is yelling, see? So it's like that, where we are getting knowledge that we don't necessarily need to have, that we don't necessarily have to have, that Allison's not telling us. But it gives the writing a little bit of voice and a little bit of energy, and it's something that you need, because this is essentially 70 pages of telling. This is not a story. Like, we do get a little bit of showing here and there, but this is essentially saying, okay, Allison shows up on the doorstep, she's invited inside, and I'm going to give you brief overviews as to what happens over the next 24 hours. So you kind of do need a little bit of voice and energy so that the reader's not bored, because that's the first rule of writing: showing versus telling. Info dumping is not fun. That's what people do at the beginning of novels, is they give you all this information because you don't know anything yet. That's all this is information. Forman is not telling us another story. She's just being like, look, I'm answering the call. You guys wanted more, I'm giving you more, but it's really only a little bit. Anywho, Just One Day, Just One Year, Just One Night. Great little trilogy, or technically duology plus a pamphlet. I recommend it. It's one that I've read over and over and over, and it instills in me a sense of wanderlust that is probably the reason I shouldn't read these books, particularly Just One Day, because I'm like, I'm a failure at life. What have I achieved? I don't have my great love, and I don't go out on a limb for anything. So there you go, Just One Night. This is the quick little thing that you're never going to get again. I will see you next week, and have a great one. Bye.